Eileo guys, and welcome back. I hope everyone's doing well. In today's old video though, we have the hunters who recently have gotten a buff, a much needed buff, so let's go ahead and dive right into it. Alright, so starting off here we have Fire Hunter, who is an attacker type. He's coming in with nearly 26k HP, 3.1k attack, and then 1.8k defense. His stats are actually pretty chunky considering that he's a nat 3. Now his defense stat, we're not going to talk about that. We're not, that's not on the table right now, but 3k attack stat and 25k HP as a nat 3. That part is acceptable. And do keep in mind as well that all the hunters, of course, are single target. But let's take a look at his skills real quick. So he comes in with morale boost, which he has to have, hopefully, a square slot on him because he requires max crit. You can, of course, hit max crit without a square slot. It's just a little bit more difficult. And the biggest issue here is that it's a nat 3 that you're sacrificing your gems or you're giving your gems towards, which I honestly don't recommend. Just get him with a square slot because he's easy to obtain and there's no real excuse as to why you can't get one with a square slot. And then for his 5-star skill, he has stun, which grants a 80% chance to stun the enemy for 2 turns. Remember, he's single target, so he does have the ability to stun, and with his morale boost, as long as his crit is maxed, he will essentially be able to stun every other turn, if not every turn, depending on how much damage he's outputting. He also has a crit lead, which could be useful as you start the game out, but obviously once you hit max crit, it's just useless in general. With books though, morale boost receives a 30% boost, and then stun receives a 30% damage boost as well, and it goes to 100% for 2 turns. Now, while his stats aren't super duper great, I do feel like his recent buff has made him a lot more viable. It's weird that they took off stun being crit reliant but still kept morale boost, so he's still crit reliant, meaning you're going to have to dedicate a slot at least for him in terms of his crit, because there's no other way around that unless you want to do enhancements and stuff like that. But I do see a possible use for him in the nat 3 league, since with his skills being buffed, and not only that, but his stats being a little bit better than what they were, he could definitely be viable in that type of situation there. But the main selling point is just him being able to stun, even though it's a single target, so it could add some usability towards him for the nat 3 league. But there's other hunters that we can discuss before we go into a more in-depth discussion in terms of Fire Hunter. Alright, coming up next though, we have Water Hunter, who's an attacker type. He's coming in with 26k HP, 2.8k defense, and then 1.7k attack. That's weird that he has like maybe 400 or 500 more HP than the Fire Hunter, but he literally has less attack and less defense. I'm assuming they're trying to like keep some sort of balance on him though, because it'd be kind of unfair giving a monster with puncture more attack than a monster with stun, I guess, to try and offset it, even though it doesn't really work that way. But let's take a look at his skills. So he has SP Siphon for 20% for his 3-star skill, and then for his 5-star skill he has puncture 70%. Keep in mind, once again, he is single target, so obviously your damage isn't going to be super duper amazing, but it's nice that we do have access to a water mon now with puncture up there. I do believe this actually like the first water mon with puncture? I could be wrong, but I know that Wood Artemis has recently gotten puncture, but she's wood obviously. But very interesting. So he does have the ability to do some crowd control. We can see with the SP Siphon here, he gets a 20% damage boost, and the SP Siphon goes up to 30%, which is obviously very usable. Anything past 25, in my opinion, is very usable. 20% is a little bit anemic, but obviously you can book them up super duper easy. Puncture gets a 20% damage boost as well, and it goes to 75%, which, I mean, it's still puncture, but obviously it's going to be severely nerfed, even though it's a single target, and single target mons do have a higher multiplier versus the AoE mons, but it's still not that great. So I mean, if you were inside the event, or if you were inside a situation where you needed a Watermon, and hopefully you can just build him kind of tanky-ish to take advantage of his ability to do some crowd control in terms of SP, this could be the Mon for you. But with 75% puncture rate and he's already single target, the SP Siphon part is nice, but it's not enough, and at least in my opinion, to cover him for really anything. But I could be wrong. Dudes could be out there slamming water hunters all day. You never know. Alright, up next though, we have Wood Hunter, who is a defender type. He's coming in with 30k HP, 1.7k attack, and then 2.8k defense. Honestly, Nat 3, his stats aren't really that bad at all. I mean, not really bad at all. He has some HP higher than some Nat 5s, and even some Nat 4s, and his defense stat is close to 3k. Obviously not 3k, and his attack doesn't really matter because his job is just to survive and hopefully be annoying. But let's take a look at his skills real quick. So he has morale boost, which grants him a 100% chance to restore his own SP by 30% when attacking, and then he has a 3-time sap that lasts for 1 turn with an 80% chance. Let's go over here to the books. So morale boost can go up to 50%. So 50% of SP gain per turn, not counting orbs, and it gets a 20% damage boost. And then Sap receives a 20% damage boost, and it goes to 90% Sap times 3 for 2 turns. Now, I'm going to be real with you guys. Even though he's a defender, you can always get damage out of your Sappers. And with him being a single target, it's cool that he can get his SP bar up super duper quickly. But if you're in a situation where you're doing things on auto, chances are 99% of the time he's not going to target the boss. He's not going to target whatever that you're trying to DPS down with Sap. He's just not going to do it. So in my opinion, this obviously is just the weakest hunter. Unless you're playing auto, I would just bring an AoE Sapper anyways. I mean, we have Water Miho, Water Sea-Star recently got a buff. He is just, he's here for the Asher Guide. Like, no books could save him, no stat increase can save him. I don't know why you would use him as a defender even during like SP season for the Nat 3 League. Like, there's, yeah, Asher Guide only. Moving on next, we have Light Hunter, who's an attacker type. He's coming in with 30k HP, 3k attack, and then 2k defense. That defense stat is a little bit cringe, man, but considering how he was before, this is definitely an upgrade. 3k attack stat is acceptable. Could always be higher. But it's acceptable. Let's take a look at his skills though. So for his 3-star skill, he has Shock, which grants a 60% chance to shock a target for 2 turns. And then for his 5-star skill, he has 80% Puncture, which is 10% more than the water version of him. Now with Shock, you can do the same thing similar to SP Siphon. Obviously it's not SP Siphon, but similarly where you can basically crowd control an enemy or prevent them from acting, or provide a setup for any of your other mons in a PvP or clan versus clan situation to deal some additional damage to them. And then with the Puncture, that 10% is a big boost considering he does have slightly higher attack, but the great part about this mon is that, you know, it's a lot easier to build him with max crit. It's a way easier to build him with max crit versus the RGB, so there's really no excuse as to why he couldn't have max crit. But once again, he's single target. And let's take a look at his books real quick though. So Shock gets a 15% damage increase, and it goes to 70% for 2 turns, which is very, very acceptable. I'm okay with that. And then Puncture receives a 20% increase and goes to 85%. Once again, that's acceptable as well. But I mean, the biggest factor here is not so much stats, even though stats are very important, as it is just him being, like, I feel like he needs a super evolution. Like, I feel like this is a great step, and this is a very good step inside the direction for his skills, and they did receive minor stat boosts, but I feel like a super evolution, which if they did what they did for like Hana, where they went in and maybe changed like his leader skill and changed his stats a little bit more in depth, like Hunter could be a lot more viable than how he is now. Like, I think this is a really great way that they've done this. But it's just a little bit lackluster in my opinion, because 85% Puncture is by no means a joke at all, but he's single target. So if I was to attack him, I wouldn't really worry about him. Yeah, he may be able to kill Amon, but while he could kill Amon, I can kill his whole entire squad. That's the only issue here. And I mean, if he was able to be in a Nat 3 league with something like this, that could be very interesting, but he is a Nat 4, so he does not get the stat boost that Nat 3s or lower get. Just FYI. Alright, and then last but not least, we do have Dark Hunter, who's a balance type. He's coming in with 30k HP, 2.6k attack, and then 2.7k defense. Nat 4, his stats, they are what they are. They're pretty normal. I mean, it's nothing extravagant at all, considering it is Hunter, which up until this point in the game has literally just been a meme, because no one ever decided to use them. But his stats are okay. I mean, I can't really go too much on about that. Skill wise though, for his 3-star skill, he has stun with a 60% chance that will last for 2 turns, and then he also has an 80% puncture. With the Hunter update 433, which is just like puncture here, puncture there, you get puncture, my dog gets puncture, my cat gets puncture, my freaking car gets punctured, the mailman, the mail lady gets puncture, even the kid down the street riding his bike, you get puncture. But anyways, with books, his stun receives a 20% damage boost, and it goes up to, what was that, 80% for 2 turns? That's pretty chunky. And then puncture also receives a 20% damage boost, and it gets the it goes to 85%, similar to the light one. However, even though he does have lower attack than the light one by about roughly 350, he is a dark type, so having him with max crit would definitely out damage Light Hunter. And he does have the ability to do some crowd control as well, with 80% stun that lasts for 2 turns on his 3-star skill, meaning you have a lot more control over deciding if you want to do puncture on a target and possibly kill them, or if you want to stun them and maybe save that for the next turn, or prevent someone else from acting and causing death and destruction on your squad. Once again, he's kind of in a similar boat as the light one. I mean, you could do either or at this point in time. It's just that they are single targets, so if you were to use them in a PvP situation, I would definitely be playing manually and not auto. And also, I mean, I'm not sure how much this puncture in comparison to Gatito's Hunter lines up, but we could definitely take a shot at it real quick, because puncture, you know, obviously it ignores defense 85%, and he has 2.6k attack stat. I'm curious to see what Gatito has. So Gatito has a 3.2k attack stat, and then he has Hunter 50%, and then with books that gets a 20% damage boost. So I'm curious to see how that would perform in comparison to Gatito. Not saying that Gatito is better than him, but obviously if I was going to bring in a single target Mon, I haven't tested Dark Hunter out, you know, Dark Gatito is always my go-to. The only issue though is that since he's single target, it kind of does hurt his performance, and obviously you can't use him in the Nat 3 league because he doesn't get that stat boost. But I think overall the boost to the Hunters was a really great step. I do hope that in the future they can get maybe like a super evolution and a slight stat rework. Like, you can keep the single target thing. I understand that not all Mons need to be AoE, and that could definitely impact Hunter and just change his skills entirely, which I don't think was the point of the recent patch. But it's nice that they do have puncture, so they do have some uses. What was it? Which one is it? So, I mean, Fire Hunter, in my opinion, isn't going to be too useful because the Dark one does exist. And yes, obviously, if you weren't here for his rebirth, you don't pull him from an egg, you won't really have him. But we have other mons that you can easily get stunned from, so it doesn't really make him a good contender. Water one is nice depending on what content that you're doing, because you do have the ability to maybe control a boss with the SP siphon and then potentially do some damage as well with puncture. Wood one is literally just a meme. Just a meme. Light and dark are different but similar in their own way. One has shock and the other has stun. One has slightly more attack than the other, but one's also a dark type, so they have more crit damage than the other. And it's really up to you to decide which one that you pretty much like the best. I don't think their performance is going to be massively different, but it should be different enough to hopefully sway you more, at least personally for me, towards the dark type. But that's only from my experience with dark mons in general. But I personally think the Hunter buff was pretty much very needed, And just because in these situations I don't really find them super appealing, it doesn't mean that they aren't appealing. So especially if you're a newer player, feel free to go ahead and build one up and actually invest in one, even if you only get him to level 50. Maybe he can help you clear out through some content. Maybe he can help you burst down certain mods on like a clan versus clan or a low level PvP situation, because with the Nat 3 League, at least the fire and the water do get a boost. I just would not bring the wood anywhere because, you know, unless you're a masochist, that's pretty much it. But I'm going to go and end the video here, you guys. Feel free to leave a comment below if you guys are excited or you think the hunter buff was much needed and you're actually enjoying and loving your hunters. Feel free to let me know where you guys are using your hunters at, so once other users check out this video, they can be like, hey, I want a hunter review. Actually, I do have a hunter built up already. Where do I use them at? Oh, let me scroll down in the comments. Oh, you use them here? I never thought about that. Let me go over here and use them as well and tear this game up. But that's pretty much it, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't considered subscribing, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. It's free, and if you don't like the content, well, you're gonna like it. You're gonna like it. And if it's your birthday, happy birthday, and see ya.